Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy Nate. Today, we're going to be discussing some calm weather for the next couple of days before things will begin to ramp back up towards the weekend. So if you guys are new to my channel, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you are new for daily uploads of the weather, as well as live streams whenever it does get bad. Also share this video with friends and family and on social media. That would be greatly appreciated. I appreciate all the support you guys give me. And yes, let's get into the video. I do have timestamps for specific stuff that may happen. So whether it's on Wednesday, whether it's on Thursday, let me move my camera because it looks weird. There we go. So Wednesday or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all sorts of stuff. So let me move my face cam over so you guys can see what all is happening here. So if you want to go to Wednesday, go to this timestamp. If you want to go to Thursday, go to this timestamp. If you want to go to Friday, feel free to do that as well. And then Saturday, the Storm Prediction Center has actually issued a 15% chance for severe weather within Kansas, Missouri, and northeastern parts of Oklahoma. This does include Wichita and Kansas City, and I have a feeling this could include other areas as well. First things first, let us talk about the marginal risk here for day one. This is on Wednesday. We have a massive marginal risk that basically goes up the East Coast all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico. We also have a marginal risk here in Colorado and Kansas. So a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here is possible. So definitely something we're going to have to be mindful of as this continues to move on through. Hail risk, only localized here within the Delmarva Peninsula, as well as southern parts of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and southeastern parts of Louisiana, as well as western parts of Florida. So a 5% chance of you guys seeing 1-inch size hail or larger within those parts. Your wind risk is a lot more expansive. You can see how it goes through the coastal Carolinas all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico into the deep south. You also have your 5% chance for winds here in Kansas and in Colorado. No chance for tornadoes here today, so that is the good news. It's just more or less going to be localized with the damaging winds and the spotty hail. Let's get into the timings here for you all. If you guys want to pay attention to when this is happening, if I call out something and it piques your interest, feel free to look up the time up above. I'm gonna actually move my face over. Excuse me. So that you guys can see everything that happens across here. I don't know why, I'm feeling really congested right now, but anyways, this is starting out right around noon-ish, so right around when most of you all will see this video, and this will kind of just, be pretty calm for most of the day until the afternoon. You can see a lot of your showers here are located along the coastline of the Gulf of Mexico. More showers will begin to develop across the board here in the mid-Atlantic, but it would be very much so discreet across the entire vicinity, and that'll continue to even move out towards the coastline. So not really that big of a deal here today, just some spotty showers, very much so, distance between each other. So it's a very hit or miss type risk, and that's the reason why they issued a low chance for severe weather. Let's talk about the Kansas and Colorado area real quickly. If you take a look up at the top, there's your timing for Central Daylight Time, Mountain Daylight Time. So once again, right around noon, and these storms will begin to kind of fire up along the border of Colorado and Kansas at around 2 Mountain, 3 Central, and that'll continue to kind of just consolidate, a bit more of a consolidated risk here in the Central Plains. And that'll continue to move off all the way into the evening, into the overnight hours, but it seems to deteriorate as you get further and further into the night, closer towards midnight. Here's the high temperature for most of us here in the United States. I had to do that real quickly just to fix something. But you can see it stays relatively warm across much of the United States, except for if you're in the Mississippi and Ohio River Valley area. You can see how actually that's a bit more into the 60s and 50s, but that's kind of pretty comfortable in my honest opinion. I mean, even up here in the Northeast into the Appalachians, you can see it's pretty comfortable for the most part. So it's living the dream as of right now, especially with how much severe weather there has been. But out in front of that boundary with all the severe weather, temperatures in the 70s, mid 70s, upper 70s into the 80s as you get further east. 90s in some areas here in Florida, but then again, as I always like to say, Florida is going to Florida, and yeah, that's I feel like that's the best way to describe how the weather is in Florida. So, but for the most part, it stays relatively comfortable here for a good portion of the United States. One area that it does not get comfortable in is look at the western part of the United States. Look at this. Into the Sierras, all the way over into California, into the Northwest. 70s, mid to upper 70s, all the way up into the almost 100s north of Los Angeles, and even west or east, I should say, of the Bay Area. So there's just a lot of warm weather here in the West right now, and that will probably stay for the most part. Dew points anywhere within this kind of like greenish is pretty comfortable for the most part. It's like 40s to 50s. Anywhere in this kind of like tan to like dark tan, that's kind of pretty dry. It's really dry actually. And anywhere in these blues and purples, that's when it can get really muggy. So decently moist across portions of the eastern to southeastern parts of the United States, and then decently dry on the other half. So it's kind of like one side of the United States is pretty moist, another side is kind of not, and you can expect to see decent temperatures across the most part. As I said, it's going to be relatively comfortable. It's going to be relatively cool, but I don't foresee this to be a major fire risk, if you will, unless if you live here in the western part or the southwestern parts of the states. So definitely be mindful of all of that. All right, here's our risk here for on Thursday. Let's move my face over again because my face is covering the entire state of Florida. Who knew my face was that big? My goodness, I need to fix that. So massive, not really actually a massive marginal, but a marginal risk has been issued here for practically the state of Florida. This includes places like Jacksonville, all the way down through Daytona, down through Palm Beach, into maybe even the Miami general vicinity, even areas near Lake City and areas south of Tallahassee could get into this action for some severe weather. You also have just some general thunderstorm indicated in the bright green. So a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here across the board. 5% chance for hail is possible. So it's very small. 5% chance for 1-inch size hail or greater is possible. Same thing with the winds. 5% chance for winds, 58 mile per hour winds and above. But no tornadoes with that. So Thursday's looking pretty calm too, for the most part. Let's get into the timings here. As I said, if you want to stay tuned, if you want to stay up to date with what all I'm talking about, look at the time up at the top, and boom, it'll give you all a rough estimate as to when storms will start to move on through. So if you head on through, this is the afternoon hours. Actually, it's the late morning into early afternoon hours, and storms just kind of, linger for the most part. You also have some storms up here in the Ohio and Mississippi River Valley, and that'll kind of just move on through. It's not anticipated to be fully severe, but as we continue to move along, it starts to become a lot more widespread in both areas, both here in Florida and in the Ohio River Valley. And so I would just be mindful. I could foresee this to be a marginal risk potentially, maybe for some damaging winds, but I think it'll just mainly be a lot of passing showers that'll move on through. And same with Florida, except it'll probably be a lot more severe, as actually will probably a lot more significant once it's off the coast. So that's the good news for all of you. But definitely something that you guys are going to want to watch out for as time continues to progress. Here's our high temperatures for the United States. Does not differ from what it was the day before. Look at this over here on the western side of the United States. Temperatures still 70s, 80s, even 90s. I can even see 100 right here. And so really high for the temperatures for the most part near the Sierras. and the potential for some fire weather as possible, as always here in these general vicinities. My face is kind of covering up Sierras, so that's kind of unfortunate. But back off to the what I was saying here. Um, Temperatures here, for the most part, in the western part of the United States, really, really warm, really hot and dry, as you'll see in the dew points here in the next frame. But for the most part, you can see these areas right here, 60s, 50s. This would be the northern plains all the way through into Ontario, all the way down towards the northeast. It's pretty comfortable for the most part. Deep south is going to stay relatively hot within the 70s to the 80s, even 90s in Florida. Same thing with Texas and stuff like that. And so that's, it's typical climate for most of us here. Typical climate. Dew points here, for the most part, you can see really dry for the most part in the western part of the United States. That's the reason why I'm saying fire weather is possible. We also have dews that are starting to reach into the 50s across the most parts of the South Central Plains, into the Dixie Alley, Deep South general vicinity, all the way up into the Ohio River Valley. That's the reason why I said the potential for severe weather is there, but the dew points are just pretty insignificant for the most part. So it'd be a marginal risk for severe weather at best. And then, of course, as I said, Florida is going to Florida with how moist it typically is. So that's how, I guess that's just how that works. When you're near a tropical climate, it's going to stay tropical. Here is the outlook for Friday, severe weather outlook, the categorical outlook, just a marginal risk here. Southeastern parts of Colorado, northern parts of Texas, western parts of Oklahoma and Kansas. This is really the feeder into what's going to happen on Saturday and potentially even Sunday. But if you guys live over here, I'd highly recommend monitoring the system as it gets closer and closer. I'll have more information for you all as time moves along. What I do not have is specific timings. I just have rough estimates at this point due to how far away it kind of is. But this is around the afternoon hours right here. And as soon as it gets into the afternoon towards the overnight hours, you can see how storms start to become a bit more sporadic. This is a lower resolution model, so it's not going to be as well defined as some of the other images that I've shown you. But it seems to be a lot more sporadic here once it gets into the evening and overnight hours as it moves on through. So the potential for some severe weather is there. It seems to be rather localized. So like Amarillo and north of Amarillo most likely is where it's going to be. It looks like it'll stay relatively to the south and west of Dodge City. So if you know anyone who lives in the Amarillo, Dodge City areas, and even in between the two, then I would advise them that they have the potential for some severe weather on Friday. Okay, let's talk about Saturday here real quickly. Because, I didn't put the high temperatures for Friday up. It's too inconsistent for me to be able to tell as of right now. So let's talk about Saturday here real quickly. And this is going to get pretty interesting because this is starting out in the morning. We're going to use the Euro model for this because the Euro and the GFS say practically the same thing. Just one's a little bit more north, one's a little bit more south, but it doesn't really matter in my honest opinion. Low pressure right here starts from the Rockies. That'll start to eject through the United States, and you'll see that as it continues to transpire. Snow is possible across the Dakotas into the upper Rocky Mountains in Montana, all the way actually throughout the Rocky Mountains, to be completely honest with you. And so, as this low pressure begins to set up, you can see massive warm front here across the board. This is your warm front right here. Your cold front would be right about here, and anywhere in between this general vicinity. I'd say probably right about, so here's your warm front, here's your cold front, right within this general vicinity, below the warm front and in front of the cold front, this general vicinity could potentially see some severe weather. So right within about here is what I'm looking at right now. And we'll see that as it continues to move on through, but the low pressure really starts to materialize as it goes overnight, and that'll continue to move on through to the deep south on Sunday. Dew points, for the most part, you can see your warm front that evects all of the warm air. Advection is just warm air moving. It's a scientific word for that. So all this advection from the Gulf of Mexico, the moisture return from this is coming back, and it's returning into the Central Plains. And so we have a pretty interesting setup with a dry line here that extends all the way down towards Fort Stockton. And so if there's any storms that form along this dry line, you can see some large hail in upwards of 2 inches, especially near the Childress area and further east towards Frederick, Oklahoma, Wichita Falls, Texas, stuff like that, all the way down towards Abilene. So if there's any storms that form along there, you could potentially see something active. Anywhere out in front of this, if there's any prefrontal convections, this could support some supercells that could produce some large hail, damaging winds. Well, not large hail, it could be somewhat large hail, but damaging winds and even the threat for tornadoes, based off of what we're seeing here in the next few slides. But the moisture is here. Anywhere in these yellows indicate that it's relatively moist. And so because it's 60s and above, even 70s here in some spots, there is plenty of moisture for this event. Your convective available potential energy, or CAPE, as we like to call it, it's the displacement between the warm air rising and the cold air sinking in the atmosphere. So the more of a displacement between the two can cause a lot more energy for thunderstorms to be able to form and even intensify further. So if you have around, say, 2,000 joules per kilogram, give or take, then that's around the amount of energy that you would want for strong storms to appear, severe storms to appear. And that would be in this yellow. The yellows and above is a 2,000 joules per kilogram and above. Now, I will say this is a model that is a little bit far out. We'll have to look at this as this gets closer and closer to the event. So the potential for severe weather is here. But this energy amount could increase, it could decrease. So half and half for the most part. But you can see even in some of these areas that get into the bright orange, into the red, that even gets up to 3,000 joules per kilogram, which would mean that there is enough energy for some strong severe storms and something that could potentially be tornadic. Speaking of which, let's take a look at our low-level jet here. And you can see how our low-level jet, the winds are coming from the south here. And this is a typically favorable setup for something that could be tornadic, especially with how the low pressure system channels the winds for the most part. And so whenever you have our low level jet that's coming from the south like that, that's definitely something that we're going to want to watch out for, especially since this low level jet is pretty strong too, in upwards of 40 to almost 50 knots of wind shear. So that would be around 45 to 50 miles per hour. And we're looking at this at about 1 kilometer up in the sky. So it's not that high. It's not that high above the ground. And, our low-level jet here, most of you might be wondering, well, why is this important? Well, our low-level jet here, if we draw arrows as to where it's going in wind direction, and we go over to our mid and upper level jet here, we'll say mid-level jet, which is 500 millibars. We're looking up about 6 kilometers up in the sky now. You can see how the winds change in direction. You can see how this is coming straight from the west now. And so whenever we get this veering in the atmosphere, this can create a general spin. You can kind of see how it's curling off towards the right with these arrows. If you can imagine how if you were a weather balloon and you were going up in the atmosphere, in the lower parts of the atmosphere, your weather balloon is heading due north. And then as this continues to go higher and higher and up in the sky, it starts to curl and it's starting to head towards the east now. So whenever you get this general spin, this general veering in the atmosphere, this can be indicative for supercells that could even produce tornadoes. So we have decent wind shear here for the most part. These greens indicate 40 knots of wind shear at the 500 millibar level, which is acceptable for severe weather. You would want 40 knots of wind shear or above in order to consider supercells to potentially be tornadic. And so we have that, and the potential for severe weather is here in the Central Plains. So definitely something we're going to want to monitor as this continues to move on forward. And we'll go even further towards Sunday here. this is starting to get into some uncharted territory as to what could potentially happen, but this is around the morning. So our low pressure system is here. Our warm front is right about here. And we have a lot of warm moisture heading into the deep south here. And so the potential for a cold front to come around, cause some severe weather again for the same areas that got impacted earlier this week is possible here on Sunday. And so we're really going to have to watch out for this, especially Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, potentially Georgia and Florida, as well as the Carolinas. You guys could potentially see something, but it looks like, according to the Euro and the GFS, it'll stay localized towards like Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Alabama. So really something we're going to have to watch out for. I'm going to have more information on this as we get closer and closer to the event itself, but that's just all we have as of right now. Last but not least, I want to thank our channel members, our sponsors. We have 31 of them, believe it or not. 31 of these people have decided to support the channel. And it's just absolutely amazing what these people have done. And so I greatly appreciate all the people whose names are on the screen here. And yeah, no, it's just thank you for supporting my channel every month. I really do appreciate it. That's going to be it for me, guys. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like on it. It helps me a lot. It gets me onto more people's recommended feeds. So that would be greatly appreciated if we can get the word out to more people. Also, please be sure to subscribe if you are new. I do live analysis whenever the severe weather does get bad. I do not know if I'm going to be live streaming on Saturday because we don't know the sheer magnitude of the event yet. But if it does get to a 5% chance for tornadoes or above, then the potential for me live streaming does increase exponentially. And so if you guys are excited for that, please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications because I upload videos every single morning. Follow me on social media, friends and family. Also could follow me on social media. And yeah, that would be greatly appreciated. I'll catch you guys in the next video, everyone. Peace out.